Hello, and welcome to this introduction and walkthrough video to the Citational Politics Toolkit. My name is Sarah Sauvé, she, her. I am one of the team co-leads for the FORRT Citational Politics Working Group, and I am first author on the preprint called Towards Citational Justice that introduces this toolkit and hopefully brought you here today. So you've read the toolkit and you might be wondering how to possibly get started. There are a lot of tools and practices that we introduce. What can you do? So I'm going to walk you through the most accessible tools. So we've divided our toolkit into 4 different phases. We have planning, project, paper, and publication to reflect the whole research cycle. And for each phase, we have some practices and some tools. So we're going to start with planning. And this tool you can actually do at any time. So we have the Citation Transparency browser extension. So I already have it installed. I'm not going to remove, but you can just usually click install. And this is available for most browsers. So the way it works is that if you're looking, say, for some literature, let's look for citational politics. When enabled, here you can enable or disable it. It will automatically generate a probabilistic estimate of the gender of the first and last author. So this is a very quick and dirty, just from the beginning, get some idea of who it is that's a part of the literature that you are searching. So that might guide some choices into who you want to read or not. So that's a very high level, easy thing to do that you can implement right away. We also have a clear citational politics training module. We're going to develop our own, that will come later, but CLEAR has a training module that was developed for teaching, but it can be applied, I think, in any context. So for the quickest version, I would recommend doing steps 1 and 4. So think of one thing that you'll do to guide your citations for the rest of the course, semester, project, whatever scale you're working at. When I'm working with my students, if it's for a module, we'll think about the assessment for the module. If it's for a dissertation or a thesis, we think at that level. I do this for all of my papers. I think about what the goal is for that particular paper and what kind of citation I want to engage in for that particular project. And then step 4 is how you're going to evaluate that intervention. So how will you know that you actually did what you said you were going to do? And there are lots of tools, or at least several options for tools and practices in the paper section of our toolkit that will help you with this. If you want to think about it in a bit more depth, think of a reason you're choosing the course of action. Why are you doing this thing in particular? And give some evidence that the action is needed. If you don't want to do this for your particular project, this is really good to apply with some students and get them to think about their citation practice, why they might do what they're doing. Now, this assessment starts with reading a blog post, which I assign to students. If you've read our preprint, you might find it a little bit repetitive, but it's a different way of writing, a different point of view, so also worth looking at. Yes, CLEAR has produced also a bibliography, so there's a Zotero library that you can look at of citational practice. So here is that library with all these additional readings. They also provide additional resources, so there's more projects from this group. They've written more blog posts. So there's more reading here, this series of blog posts. And then we just looked at the teaching module and we just looked at the Zotero library. There's also a project around reading that you look into. So lots of options depending on how much depth you want to get into with this particular tool and practice. Something else to consider early on in the project is authorship order already. What's the relative distribution? And potentially thinking about labor early on, though this can be reevaluated. So this practice is actually at the beginning stage and also steps in the publication stage of the toolkit. So this was developed by FORRT, by the neurodiversity team. Here's their landing page with all the information about AWOP, we call it. And there's all sorts of additional resources that are either out or coming up, how it's already being used, a walkthrough video, and also opportunities to get involved, new content. If you're interested, do reach out to the team. So for now, we're going to walk through this Shiny app. So here's a Shiny app. We have the welcome. I'm not going to read through absolutely everything. Here's a user guide. The way it works essentially is in the first step, you have the standard wheel with the category name, the section it lives under, what the category is about, and then the three different levels of privilege that exist for that category. To get rid of any category, you change the weighting to 0. If you want to have any category weigh more than others, you can adjust the weighting anywhere from 1 to 5. If you want to add your new category, you can click the button and a new category will appear. You enter the details for that category, update your wheel, and then download your wheel. I've already done this so that when we go to step 2, you can upload a file. Let me go to my file. So here I have my AWOP file, and so every category will come up and every person on the research team can fill it out. So every category, there's a drop down of 3 different options. And then once that's filled out, you can either have the score, mean score, or a multiplicative score. And then you'll end up with, that's enormous, the sum score. So this is, I didn't change anything. So this is currently the maximum score possible is 72, or a mean score would be 3. Right, so the idea is that you can help use this tool to help you determine authorship order by placing those with the least privilege first, right? Because when we cite, the first name is the one that we see the most often. So this is a way to distribute privilege more equitably within citation by starting like right at the source of authorship. Now, once you start the project, you might start reading, right? Reading the literature. What we have here is a diversity reading table. So if you scroll down, we have this table of all these different databases to help diversify your reading. So this could be early on, right from the start of your literature review, or it can also help you diversify in particular ways. So if you're looking for Indigenous voices, for example, you can look at the Indigenous Science Network. If you're looking to include more women in your citation list, more queer scientists, we have also a neurodiverse lists. And then we have specific fields as well, so coastal geoscience, engineering, we have neuroscience. There's Black in computational and computing and tech. And so there are lots of different spaces that you can look at specifically. So here's one example. I use this one quite regularly for teaching, for example. So I will look for all papers I teach on memory in a first year lecture, and usually there's some neuroscience associated with it. So I'll go to the neuroscience tab and search for papers that are about memory and try to find some authors or projects that are directly related to what I'm teaching so that I can replace the usually white author with a BIPOC author to diversify the teaching. And you can do the same with whatever you are working on, right? So I publish mostly in music perception. So here's sensation perception. Let's go music and see how many papers look at music and what they're looking at, right? So this is about head sway, which is not really what I do. This is, I know these people. Do online social tags predict emotional responses? That might be something that I could potentially cite in some of my work, depending on what that particular paper is about. This is about music therapy, which is not my field. So, not every paper is going to apply, but it'll help widen the literature that you are already probably engaging with, right? Because Google has been demonstrated to be sexist and racist. It will most often give you the white men, of course not exclusively, but it's what it's most likely to return. And we have repositories such as the Women in Neuroscience repository, so we can look for things like memory and EEG and say underrepresented countries only and search. And we have 22 entries, so you can follow someone, you can look at their profile and then Google Scholar to look for what they have published. Now in this example, she publishes in Spanish, and if you read, understand, and write in Spanish, then you can use this and still cite the source, right? So in music science, for example, you'll frequently see German sources, sometimes French, Italian come up a lot, just because of the history of studying music, which is very European centric, but it is okay to cite in different languages, and it does happen. So that's just a few of those different resources available in the table. So this is to help diversify your reading right from the start. And then you can revisit this later also if you find that according to the tools we have here in the paper section, if you were underciting any group in particular, then you can visit any of the resources in the table to help diversify your citations. So once you have your paper, you're going to have a citation list, and these are all various tools and practices to help evaluate your citation practice. So we're not going to go through all of them, just the most accessible and the quickest. So GBAT, the Gender Balance Assessment Tool, is one of the fastest ways of evaluating a citation list. All you need is a text file or a bib file. So here again, I've got, these are all the papers cited in volume 40 of Music Perception, for example. That's it. I'm going to click check race just because of something interesting. Go, and that's it. There's your estimate, right? This is not perfect. It doesn't claim to be. It's probabilistic. And it is also binary. So of course, only 2 categories, so we're missing out anyone on the non-binary spectrum or who is trans. The race breakdown is not super reliable either, but it can be indicative, right? So it is an estimate and it's very quick. Another quite quick tool is, where is it? The GCB Analyzer. So this has a similar process where you enter your reference list. Now it needs to have the Crossref DOI format. So if it's already in that format, great. If not, you can follow the link there, enter the references. So here are my volume 40 references. I'm going to put them in the box, submit. It's going to fetch all of the Crossref DOIs and return that to me in a second. So here's my list now with all the DOIs. I will copy it. So, a few extra steps if you don't already have the DOIs. Copy that, paste it in the box, click submit. So now it's going to take a little sec to think about it. So while that's happening, I'll quickly walk through just a couple of the other tools. So the Citation Audit Survey, the grade test, and the template are more manual looking up tools. The Diversity Codebook takes just a few more steps, but it also is similar to the GCB Analyzer. It outputs the same kind of information, and it will automatically produce the diversity statement that we have at the end of our codebook. So we used this tool in practice in our own preprint. I've personally started trying to annotate my reference list. So 1 or 2 sentences or just a little bit about why that particular paper is included in your manuscript. It's good practice always to cite your packages when you're using R and any kind of other tools. We have the inwardness metric, which is a measure of citation of the own country. Then we have a template for citing Indigenous people. Genderize is a gender API, so it probabilistically determines the gender of the author, but anything above, I think it's 100 names, you have to pay. So it's not too much money, but there is a paywall involved in Genderize. Yeah, and then Maria Holman's pre-submission checklist. This is a document. Again, you can do as much or as little as you would like, but this is an excellent checklist for looking at any article, and it considers citations as one of the sections in addition to everything else. So let's go back to the CBI. Oh, still thinking. All right. I'll be back when it's done. Okay, so it's all done. So what it will output is it'll tell you how many DOIs it categorized, how many it couldn't, and how many had problems. And then it'll give you a proportion of the categorized DOIs by category of, this is first author, last author, man, woman, man, woman, and woman. So here we see we have a higher proportion, about 50% of the papers are first author, last author, man, followed by woman, man, and then woman, and man, woman. And it also produces a gender citation balance index. So if the number is under zero, then that category is undercited. So here, any mixed gender team is undercited. Anything around zero is at the base rate. So this is pretty close to zero. Anything above zero is oversighted. So in this particular citation list, first and last author men teams are cited. So you can reset this as many times as you want. Here's a little bit of text about how to interpret any welcoming feedback and any caveats with the tool. So that concludes this initial, quick and dirty run through of the most accessible, the quickest tools that you can use. And you'll find, adapt one thing at a time. We don't have to do everything at once. And the more you use these tools, the more you do these practices and you incorporate them into your workflow, they will just become the norm. And that is ultimately the goal, right? We're trying to get at a citation practice that is more thoughtful, that is conscientious, that we are aware of who we are citing and why, and ultimately to move towards using citation as a way to distribute power and privilege within the academy. So thank you so much. Good success on your citational justice journey. This is just the beginning. If you do want to get involved with the project anymore, do feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is on the Citational Politics FORRT page under Educational Nexus. We have already a couple of ideas of where this is going. If there's anything else that you want to contribute, please do reach out. If you haven't yet read the preprint and came to the video first, please go read the preprint, spread it far and wide, talk to your friends, your colleagues about this, and yeah, let's make some change. Thank you so much.